Think Syria and one thinks war, conflict, death and destruction. The so-called Islamic State and other terror groups, human rights abuses, torture, barrel and chemical bombs. It's not called the most complicated conflict zone in the world for nothing. Russia, Iran and the US, the West, Arab countries, Turkey, Israel and Lebanon are all heavily involved either on President Bashar al-Assad's side or against his regime. Everyone though says they are fighting terrorists. While all of this is true, SNI documented many sites that are rarely seen as our team travelled to several parts of Syria for a series of reports. It's not easy getting to Syria. The SNI team of Amitabh, Revi and Prateek Suri though flew from Delhi to Beirut via the Gulf and crossed into Syria via road to Damascus. If we thought getting a visa was the most difficult part, we were mistaken. The standard reply from Indian tour operators was that there are no flights that can be booked to Syria because of international sanctions and air travel bans. The only way seemed through a fly-by-night operator with tickets via Kuwait. But he charged almost 1.2 lakh rupees per person, approximately $1,600. So we decided to fly to Beirut and drive across the border to Damascus. Our hospitality in Syria was taken care of by the government. The route from Manama, Bahrain to Beirut, Lebanon was over Saudi Arabia and Egypt, keeping away from Iraq and Syrian airspace. Avoiding Israel as well, we flew over the eastern Mediterranean Sea and then into Beirut. We had organized a taxi to Damascus before reaching Beirut and were pleasantly surprised to see a top-end Mercedes waiting for us.
Are you bloody kidding me?
But soon we were told by our Lebanese driver Hariri, who spoke a smattering of English, and our Syrian driver Ghassan Zamzam, who could only drawl "yeah" in English or "yalla, let's go" in Arabic for everything, that there would be multiple car transfers. Syrians with Syrian car number plates aren't allowed into the Beirut airport area for security reasons. They can drive in Lebanon and to and across the border, provided everyone inside has the required visas and documents. While enjoying the initial street views of the Lebanese capital and the cool Mediterranean breeze, Hariri pointed out that we were driving through the suburbs of Dahiya.
In here, the Palestinian camp. That's
Sorry?
Palestinian camp here.
Oh,
yeah.
Palestinian.
It's a well-known Hezbollah stronghold and home to about 20,000 Palestinian refugees. Through our drivers' phones, we managed to send a WhatsApp message of the recording equipment we are carrying.
This is Amitabh, Indian journalist. Is that good afternoon? Is that Basima Alashkar?
Our Syrian hosts had expressed the urgent need to let them know what we have so we can cross. Later we learned that all live broadcast equipment is usually impounded. Luckily Prateek and I were not carrying that kind of equipment, just two DSLRs, a GoPro and of course our phones. With no local SIM cards and hardly any way to communicate with our drivers, we learned that Ghassan's car battery had died. After several attempts at jump-starting it failed, we were put into a third car in an hour with a friend of Ghassan's, Amit. The 100-kilometer drive from Beirut to the Lebanese border crossing point at Masna took a little over an hour and a half on the international highway leading to the Syrian capital. The weather meanwhile changed as clouds and a light fog rolled in briefly. Lilting Arabic pop music played as we passed through the famous Bekaa Valley, Lebanon's breadbasket, and skirted the historic towns of Tura and Anjar. Since we had Syrian visas, formalities took no time and there was no checking of our baggage or equipment in the car. From there till we crossed into Syria at the Jeddah Yabus customs and immigration point was 8 kilometers in no man's land, desolate, neutral territory except for the occasional poster of President Bashar al-Assad. It's about another hour from here to Damascus. The Syrian government had sent a warm welcoming party all the way to the border since we decided not to fly into the Damascus airport. Our guide, Taisi Asadi, had an astounding experience of 30 years of taking tourists around the country. He had been largely unemployed though for the last 8 years since the war. Ghofran is a bubbly, enthusiastic worker at the tourism ministry, and Amar Al-Khalid was our naughty, speed-loving driver. It's rocky, desert-like terrain with little greenery, though it's a comfortable 25 degrees Celsius. We were in a rush at 100 km per hour speeds as the sun was on our backs, following us all the way as it went down. Large buildings being constructed and multi-story flats announced the approach to Damascus. The highway well paved with 4 to 5 lanes on either side. We wondered how people had survived the international sanctions imposed on President Assad's regime as we passed a line of trucks bringing in goods from the Lebanese border. But our view of Syria was about to be turned upside down in the scenes we were to see in Damascus. We approached the 60th Damascus International Trade Fair, and signs of traffic jams were visible as visitors made a beeline for the venue. The government supporters, Russia and Iran, were among the 48 countries whose companies were present. But as we waited in bumper-to-bumper traffic, we knew more than 24 Indian firms were also represented. The parking lot was full as we drove in, and the wait for drivers clearly has been long. Some had even brought their traditional carpets to sit on, while their passengers visited the fair. It was early evening and the crowds were thickening. This year saw over 1 million visitors who were seemingly not even deterred when Israeli airstrikes took place nearby on the last day. The fair, the oldest in the Arab world, was first held in 1954 and had 1 million people attending over a month. It was only restarted last year after being interrupted because of the conflict for 5 years. A terrorist attack in 2017 killed 6 people. In 2018 though, the atmosphere was more carnival-like, with people thronging the 1.2 million square meter new fairgrounds till closing time at 10 p.m. Western and Arab music playing in the background, and even a toy train to entertain the kids. Food stalls were doing brisk business, and with Big Brother watching, twins cooked up a delicious shawarma for us. Ahmed, a server at another food stall, attracted his customers while clearly enjoying his job. Officially, 1,722 companies from 48 countries took part, 27 through their embassies and 21 including from France, Britain, Spain and some Arab countries through agents. The interruption in past fairs for 5 years was after anti-government protests turned into a full-scale war post-2011. The government now is bolstered by military success against rebel and multiple jihadist groups, including Al-Qaeda's former affiliate and Daesh, the so-called Islamic State. So the fair saw Damascus trying to shift focus in an attempt to restore business, trade and tourism from around the world despite US-led sanctions.
What is your message for Indian companies? So many Indian companies have come here.
I told that Syria will be always for tourists, not for terrorists. So that we are all Indian company, Indian company, invited to visit Syria to see the real image of Syria, not what the terrorists of media that appear for Syria. You can see not the black pixels. You can see the mosaic of Syria, the true color of Syria.
That color visible in many performances, including a locally adapted version of the Sufi whirling dervishes. The cultural mosaic even making us dizzy. India was represented by over 30 companies and associations trying to connect with buyers of goods as varied as tractors, rice and transformers. Indian houseware firm Triveni's owner Kishore Gangar saw his stainless steel products as a shining example of what Syrian housewives desire but can't get because of sanctions.
We were not expected so much, but it has been a tremendous response the people of Syria had given us. There are many criteria, like some of the products they have not seen, some of the prices, they were unexpected prices, and the quality. These are the three things where which we can think we can beat China.
While China also had a sizable contingent, the only unofficial US presence was of a 1970s Dodge Challenger with a Syrian number plate. America continues to reject reconstruction funding or dropping sanctions until a political settlement is made. Is Syria ranking at 174 among 190 countries in the Ease of Business Index 2017? That's something that the Syrian government is keen to change. And that was clearly an atmosphere the people who came out for the Damascus trade fair were also keen to reverse. And they displayed that with their footfall, over 1 million people. Even if it was past 10:30, the night couldn't have ended on a better note than with Ghofran, our tourism ministry companion, playing Arab pop music on the way to the hotel, and then even mouthing a popular Bollywood track.
नगाड़े संग ढोल बाजे